Of all the various kinds of UFO-related phenomena that have materialized, the so-called light spheres certainly hold a particularly important place. These objects have recently gained greater popularity, thanks in part to the studies conducted by Dr. Elzio Hasselhoff. According to his theory, the light spheres could be the cause behind crop circles, with which they have often been associated. But the spheres began to appear many years ago. During the Second World War, airplane pilots on both sides of the war reported on several occasions that they were flanked by mysterious light spheres during their missions. These spheres could execute maneuvers that would have been impossible for the pilots' airplanes. Their many attempts to outstrip the spheres and avoid pursuit were unsuccessful, and in fact, the spheres often seemed to anticipate the maneuvers of even the most experienced pilots. They appeared in all areas involved in the war, from Europe to the Far East, and it was soon clear that they were not secret enemy weapons. They were given the name Foo Fighters, from a corruption of the French word feu. The objects appeared to be glowing, bright spheres in colors ranging between red, orange, yellow, white, and green. The instruments aboard the planes experienced malfunctioning when these mysterious craft appeared, and once radar technology became operative, the pilots realized that the craft were not detected by their radar devices.
El fenómeno de las esferas se inicia en la Segunda Guerra Mundial.
The phenomenon of flying spheres begins to manifest during the Second World War, during the air attacks among American, English, German, and of course Italian and Japanese air forces.
Cada una de estas fuerzas aéreas tuvo reportes y supo de la presencia.
They all reported the presence of these spheres. Each of them thought they were secret enemies' weapons. And so they were frightened as they moved with great freedom. They could come very close to or move away from airplanes, almost passing between them.
The committees established by both the Allies and the Germans to investigate the phenomenon did not officially reach any serious result. Initially, the pilots and their superiors were bewildered and understandably afraid that the spheres were secret enemy weapons. They later became accustomed to this presence, considering it innocuous. According to the pilot's statements, the objects were filmed on several occasions, but the films have since been kept in secret military archives. Footage filmed by random witnesses began to appear in the 1950s. These films showed the objects both alone and in groups, and what we see in the images confirms the statements made by the military pilots. In this film, we see that the cameraman has located a sphere hovering in the sky and an airplane flying nearby. Amongst the first to suggest that these craft may be extraterrestrial was the Polish-American George Adamski, the first and most famous of the contactees, that is, human beings who come into repeated contact with beings presumed to have come from other worlds. Adamski declared that these flying objects were remote-controlled surveying probes that extraplanetary spaceships had launched into Earth's orbit for study purposes. Their shape could be spherical or disc-like, and their size could vary from just a few centimeters to several meters in diameter. He filmed a number of them in flight. Over the course of the years, further films added to the wealth of footage showing these mysterious craft, giving a sense of continuity to their mysterious presence and origins. This film was recorded in January 1976 over Wiltshire during an experimental Concorde flight. It was filmed by British Airways staff working on another plane. The maneuvers that the white sphere executes are perfect examples of what the military pilots had described during the Second World War. The object flies beside the Concorde, glides along its windows, and then, suddenly, darts upward at top speed. In recent years, these probes have come ever closer to cities, at times flying literally right above the rooftops, sometimes even closer to our streets. Amongst the most significant material in which these probes appear is this video, recorded in the Capo Redondo area of São Paulo, Brazil, on January 2nd, 1998. This video is all the more interesting because the object was sighted very close to an inhabited area. The object, which measures approximately 20 centimeters, made no noise and was found about 200 meters from the young man who witnessed it, Alan Bruno de Oliveira. A remarkable number of witnesses saw the apparatus undergo transformations. This was made possible by its proximity to the witnesses, as well as the duration of the sighting. Over the course of half an hour, the probe completed several transformations above the houses of Capo Redondo. The movements that the little craft made suggest that a form of intelligence is driving it, halting sharply, and suddenly changing direction and speed. It seems to have its own propulsion mechanism. These particular flying objects were also sighted in Mexico. This is one of the first of these fascinating videos. In Mexico City, while a squadron of military helicopters was being filmed during a public show, an apparently metal object unexpectedly passed between the terrestrial craft, to the amazement of the pilots, who later bore witness to the event. This is a solid object. We can see that it stands out clearly against the dark outline of one of the helicopters. It makes a diagonal descending trajectory, and it is most certainly equipped with its own propulsion system, because it flies through the strong vortex of air created by the helicopter's rotary blades without experiencing any disturbance. Moreover, this demonstrates that the object cannot be a sounding balloon, a hot air balloon, or any other kind of gas-filled object. Now, we'll observe one of these light spheres gracefully floating near the slopes of the volcano Popocatépetl, southeast of Mexico City. This document shows another one of these spheres flying at a very low altitude above the Mexican city of Guadalajara. The two videos of this particular type of phenomenon that we're about to show were recorded in Mexico City in 1998, the first just 2 days before the second. In these videos, we see an unidentified flying object in broad daylight, filmed on different days near the same building. In the first video, the object hovers by the side of the building. When the witness zooms in, we can clearly see the remarkable brightness of the rosy color that the sphere emanates. In the second video, recorded 2 days later, we initially see a dark object cross the sky. After a brief stretch, it begins to descend, and we can perceive a change in its brightness. After a slow and indecisive glide, we see it move once again along the side of the same building, shown in the previous video. Then it rises again and slowly moves away.
Sí. Se ve el árbol.
Of the cases of UFO contact that have come to light in recent years, one of the most interesting, from a photographic perspective, is the case involving Raúl Domínguez of Mexico. Domínguez has photographed classic flying saucers, as well as small spherical ships like those we've seen in these videos. The objects seem to be made of metal. Domínguez reported that he watched the objects suddenly become transparent when an airplane approached them, only to return to a metallic state when the earthly craft moved away. One of the first films to show the spheres in a group was made in the United States during the 1950s. The phenomenon reappeared in Mexico in the 1990s and in a rather widespread manner. The large number of objects shown in these videos caused quite a stir. This video was recorded in Mexico City on October the 27th, 1992 by Ulysses Trujillo. These formations seem to represent the constellations. In Mexico, they were dubbed flotillas. In this short video, one of the objects increases speed and, flying vertically, passes by a slower object. The presence of light spheres is not limited to the skies over our planet. They have also been sighted in space and filmed during both American and Russian missions. Extraordinary early testimony was provided by the American astronaut James McDivitt. While flying with the Gemini 4 in June 1965, he succeeded in filming a sphere that had approached his ship.
I happened to glance out one time, and there against the black sky was a white object. The geometry of it was sort of like a beer can or a Coke can with a pencil sticking out one of the round edges at about a 45-degree angle.
In this short film, recorded by the astronauts of the Apollo 12, we see a white sphere move quickly above the Moon's surface. While the Apollo 17 was landing on the lunar surface, one of these white spheres was filmed as it moved to the side of the earthly space module. During mission STS-51A of the American shuttle Discovery in November 1984, an apparently metal object entered into the video camera's field of vision, making a quick maneuver to the right and then disappearing again. When watching the scene again, we can see how the light and shadows change as the object moves, in correspondence with the overall light and shadows in the scene. This was not the first occasion in which the video cameras installed on the shuttle detected these objects. During mission STS-37 of April 1991, a nearly identical object was filmed. This time, the object didn't disappear straight away, but rather it swayed in front of the video camera long enough for us to observe its features more closely. In a close-up, we can observe a slight swinging motion as the object hovers in front of the lens. We can also evaluate how its shadow changes as it moves, indicating